You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. Be sure to smash that like button. LSU had its second full scrimmage of spring practice on Saturday. Afterwards, Brian Kelly met with the media, talked about a lot of different things. Here was Brian Kelly recapping the scrimmage on Saturday.
Today we scrimmaged with a better intensity. I don't know if it was any cleaner, but it was certainly with better intensity and the kind of competitive spirit that I was looking for. And again, now our focus will be, for example, at the quarterbacks, who's maybe a little bit stronger at an RPO game plan, who might be a little bit better at a traditional, across the field read, offensive structure, and then tailoring it, to the quarterbacks. So that's what you're going to see over the next 10 days to 2 weeks.
2 weeks, of course, will mark the LSU spring game in Tiger Stadium, and I will be very interested to see what that first offensive line that runs out there looks like. And again, I want to be clear, I'm not overreacting to anything because you're 7 practices into spring. You're at the midway point of spring drills, and nothing is going to be decided through the first half of spring football of a new coaching staff. But you start to get a feel of pole position for fall camp for some of these jobs that are up for grabs. And they've shuffled the offensive line quite a bit, but as Brian Kelly said, they're kind of starting to figure it out a little bit with that unit.
I think some pieces are starting to, come together there. We moved Campbell to the left tackle position. I think he's done a really nice job there. It gives us a little bit more flexibility moving. Now you've got Dummerville and a Wire, to kind of tag team. And so, with Dellinger coming back, he gives us now some flexibility. Now we can move him inside. He can, he played tackle last year. So, it's starting to come together for us a little bit. Turner's done a nice job at the center. You guys will get a chance to talk to him today about that. So, again, it's early. We're 7-8 practices into it, but we are starting to see a little bit of consistency there. And I think it started when we decided to put the young guy at the left tackle position, and things kind of fell into place from there.
It started when they put Will Campbell at left tackle. It is, we see 5-star prospects come onto campus every year. And sometimes the 5-star prospect comes onto campus and they're Derek Stingley. And as a true freshman starts and is the best cornerback in college football. And sometimes, a 5-star comes onto campus and it just doesn't work out like you would hope it would. Remember Clifton Garrett? 5-star linebacker out of Illinois. We're number 3. He's here for a year, couldn't keep him out of Tigerland. He transferred. Happens. When you have a guy like Will Campbell who shows up on campus, and I'm not trying to hype up the kid too much, 7 practices into spring, but you got to give some perspective here. Will Campbell, I know people say, well, he should be getting ready for his prom, but it's kind of true. Like, he's an early enrollee. Like, he should be finishing up his last semester of high school. And we see guys transition from high school to college as freshmen and do well. I just mentioned Stingley. Patrick Peterson did A-OK. Ruben Randall is a 5-star freshman. Like, it happens. You have freshmen that contribute. But usually it's skill positions. Because if you're fast, you're fast. If you can jump, you can jump. You know what I mean? If you're quick twitch, you're quick twitch. The difference on the line is the physicality. When Will Campbell's playing left tackle at Neville, the defensive ends he's going against are 6 foot 230. They're high school kids. You don't see Ali Gay even when you're playing at Neville. You don't see that guy every game, every day. So the physicality is the transition that's the hardest part for a lot of these guys. It's why you just don't see many freshmen step in right away and play on either line. That's why it takes a guy like Mason Smith to be able to step in right away and play. And even Mason Smith wasn't starting game one, snap one. I mean, the last time LSU had a left tackle starting as a true freshman in his first game of his career was Sadiq Charles in 2017. That was out of necessity. That was Ed's first season. And it was out of necessity because of injury and a lot of other stuff going on. Before that, I think we looked it up when Sadiq started. It was Lewis Williams, if I'm not mistaken. You had to go back to the mid-90s. So you're talking about something that really happens like once every 20 years. But Will Campbell appears like he's ready for the physicality, and that's before he's even had a full offseason with his college strength and conditioning coordinator. Normally, these guys show up in June. They have a full summer of working out and getting stronger with a college strength and conditioning program. He hadn't even had that yet. Like, he went from playing in the state playoffs in December to early enrollee in January to hitting the practice field in February. Or March, I guess. And he's out there already halfway through spring trying to lock down left tackle. One more from Brian Kelly on Will Campbell's maturity.
Generally, you come in as a freshman, you don't know where their maturity level is emotionally. If they get beat on a play, how do they come back the next play? Is it going to affect them? He moves on to the next play. And I just think it's an emotional maturity that he carries as a freshman that's made him a guy that we can plug in as such a young player. And you don't know until you do it because he's going to have some failures and see how he handles himself. And he just bounces right back in there and gets after it. And so that's kind of what we saw the first 3 or 4 practices. We wanted to make sure that he had that kind of maturity. And we saw it over 3 or 4 practices and said, all right, it's time. Let's get him in there.
3 or 4 practices. It's time. Let's get him in there. 3 or 4 practices. True freshman, early enrollee. 3 or 4 practices. Most guys are still trying to figure out what line to stand in for sprints. They're starting him at left tackle. Even the vet, Charles Turner. Brian Kelly mentioned that media got talked to Charles Turner. Of course, they asked Charles Turner about the freshman, Will Campbell. Here's what he said.
Will Campbell, he's been doing tremendous. Coming in as a freshman, you don't see very many freshmen like him. He's very, very physically ready to play the game. There are things that he has to work on. There are things that everybody has to work on. But at the end of the day, I feel like he could help us a lot this year.
It's funny hearing that from Charles Turner because when Charles Turner signed with LSU, again out of IMG, he was always going to be a center. But when he signed, he was listed at 6'3", 266. Like, he was small. He was physically not ready. Like Charles Turner, they knew they were taking him to play center, but it was going to take a while to get him physically ready. So if anybody knows it, it's him. A lot of reason to be excited. LSU still in the mix for Steen, the transfer from Vanderbilt. There's a couple of former 5-star offensive linemen from Georgia, one a tackle, one a center, that jumped in the portal over the weekend that LSU certainly could target. So there's work to be done. Brian Kelly said at his pre-spring press conference they need to add a tight end, and his quote was, "We're not done on the offensive line." But man, if Will Campbell emerges and can be a day one starter at left tackle, and now all of a sudden you've got an experienced guy like Wire and a transfer like Frazier with as much experience as he has, battling out at the other tackle spot, and now you can kick Dellinger to the interior. I mean, all of a sudden now, that answers a gigantic question and gives you stability across your line. All the dominoes start to fall into place. It's early. I mean, you're halfway through spring. I'm not ordaining him. But Brian Kelly knows what he's talking about. Like, we've been through his track record of putting offensive linemen into the NFL. Guy knows what he's looking for. And for him to say after 3 or 4 practices, we're like, all right, let's put him in there. I mean, that's a hell of a hat tip and an attaboy to a freshman and Will Campbell. If you're excited, you should be. I don't know how you couldn't be excited when you hear stuff like that. But I'm going to be most interested to see what that first offensive line looks like in the spring game. When they run out there, and Brian Kelly also said, look, they may not have enough players. They may not be deep enough to be able to have a traditional spring game. It may just have to be offense against defense, which is fine. I'd rather see first-team offense, first-team defense. I'd rather see that. But we'll find out Saturday. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.